Ćao nippies! Opet, dobrodošli u moj kanal. I ako si novi ovdje, ćao, zdravo, zovem se Nips I sam slikarka. Danas počinjemo na srpskom because I have been living in Serbia for a while and learning some Serbian, so I thought I would sprinkle it in, give you a little taste, and also give a welcome to my Serbian viewers if I have any. Say hi, dobrodošli again. Today we are going to be working on how to study anatomy, and I put it in brackets because there are many different ways you can tackle studying efficiently in different fields. However, I do believe that you could take the bare bones, no pun intended, of this video and pretty much apply it to anything. And so that's what we're going to be covering because we got that suggestion from the lovely Looney Raw over on Patreon. Is it possible for you to cover how you tackle studying? There are a lot of subjects for an artist to cover, and sometimes that can be very overwhelming for people. How did you identify what areas you needed to work? And is there a way for you to break down topics to study when it comes to color theory, anatomy, perspective, etc.? So those are incredible questions and very valid concerns because I have felt that before and still feel that to this day because there's just so much that we have to learn and only so much time. So today we are going to be going over the steps that I have broken anatomy down into for me and what I find helpful, and hopefully it will give you some guidance on what you can do to get better at anatomy. But first, a word from our lovely sponsor, Ichigo. They have these 2 monthly subscription boxes, Tokyo Treat and Sakurako, that I'll be showing you today, that come with delicious Japanese snacks straight from Japan to your door. And each box has its own unique theme. Tokyo Treat is about fun pop culture snacks, whereas Sakurako focuses more on the traditional Japanese artisanal experience, and they also have their own monthly themes like Christmas, Valentine's, and New Year's. Both boxes also come with their own booklets that list all the goodies included with a small description for each and a list of its allergens, which is just so thoughtful. And not only that, but they also provide you with snippets of related Japanese culture and history. So it's yummy and educational. And if you weren't already impressed with the quality, let me talk about the quantity because they really jam-pack these boxes with so much. And sometimes they give you multiples of something if you want to try it more than once. And just look at all of these treats. Oh my goodness, they're all so different and so delicious. So you're getting a wide range of yummy flavors. And I've had the honor and pleasure of being with them for months. And they're one of my absolute favorite sponsors because, you know, who doesn't love snacks? But also the quality of their products and the love that they put into them is just unmatched. So if you'd like to get your own boxes, you can use code NIPS or the links down below for a discount. And I highly recommend them, not just because I'm sponsored, they really are incredible. So thank you again to Ichigo for sponsoring this video. And now back to the tutorial. Okay, so before we begin anything, not just a sponsor video, I do have a disclaimer to say that this is not an anatomy tutorial. If you want an anatomy tutorial, I'll make separate videos, or you can find tutorials by other amazing artists on this very platform. This is just going to be on how I believe is an efficient way to get better at anatomy. The first thing I want to say is you have to learn the rules before you break them. And I know you've heard this so many times, and this doesn't apply just to anatomy or to art, but to pretty much anything you do. I think it's fundamental in order to break the basics in very meaningful, aesthetic, and just fulfilling ways. And art is a little bit different because you don't necessarily need to have the rules learned because art is just subjective and it's a form of expression, and not everyone needs rules to express themselves. It's about what you want to draw, how you feel, and all of these other things. So, but there are rules in art if you want to learn them or care to learn them, which I would assume is why you're here. In this video, I have broken it down to 3 levels that I believe in this order will help you not just get better, but get better efficiently And the way to do that is by going from biggest to smallest. And what do I mean by that? It means make sure that you understand the underlying shapes, planes, foundations, volumes of everything before you start adding a bunch of details on top. I've seen a lot of artists, myself included, because, I'm not a master, I'm not perfect. There's always room to learn. Just add a bunch of details, folds, wrinkles, jewelry, the works. And what happens is that they believe that that equals quality and that makes your stuff look more finished. But if there's anything animators have taught us is that more does not equal more. Animators are able to evoke this sense of life and form and volume with just a minimal amount of lines. So today I'm going to cover these 3 steps that are going to make your drawings hopefully come to life. And finally, let's get into the actual content of the video. Okay, so the first thing that I want to touch on that you should probably get familiar with is bones. And you don't have to know every single bone in the body. I would say become familiar with the biggest silhouettes. And that is knowing how they sit, how they curve, where these things fall. You know that the elbows are usually in the middle of the waist, the width of the shoulders to here. Then we have, the basic head also fits 2 on the side. Here in the middle of the thigh is also a common one. And knowing these general placements will help you when you're drawing anything in any pose. And once you know that, then we go and turn these into shapes that we can move around and create as our base for our drawing. Draw, for example, starting with like a pose this way, we set our middle line. We want to do the bottom of the rib cage there. And we start going like this. We know our curve here, for example. And we want to create our shoulder here. We want to start with our arm cylinder here if you'd like to do cylinders. And then we can do our other shoulder here. Create our spine here, and then our pelvis, whether you want to do a circle or a square. Half circle, half square. Do the middle part of that there. And then you can just add a cute little face here. And then here you can see how we've broken down the body into shapes to create a silhouette of what would be the bone locations and what will later be our muscles. Obviously, this is not perfect. This is just a quick doodle, but the principle is the same. Now, for turning all these landmarks into shapes, know that not everybody likes to use the same shapes. So try and explore things like rectangles, cubes, and even spirals. I've seen some people do this sort of thing, trying to achieve the shapes in so many different ways. So explore and try to find what is most comfortable for you. For this part, I want to highlight this specific resource by Ruben Lara. I'll be linking, like I said, all the resources down below. And you'll see here that they break it down into cubes and different shape down here. And they show you all the landmarks that you should probably know. I think this is one of the most comprehensive free resources that I've seen. You can rotate the body here, see it in movement. This is just such an incredible resource. If you go down, you can see the bones rotated, get more familiar with the shapes, silhouettes, and they have a lot of incredible videos and resources on that as well. We've got some muscle play here as well, which we'll get into later. But I do believe this is a very good outline on how to get into anatomy and break it down in a way that is detailed but not overwhelming. Another resource that I love and use is the Proco Anatomy of the Human Body. And I have still not finished this. I've actually been working on it recently, which is why it says 2%. I'm restarting it. And this one is unfortunately not free, but if you have the money to pay for this is not a sponsored video, but I would highly, highly recommend getting your hands on this tutorial because it is just so extensive. There's like 300 videos with PDFs, breakdowns of each muscle, how they move, how they flex, the names of the joints, the bones. Literally, if you want to go into the most detail, the Proko tutorial is the way to go. I think the most important part about this step is being comfortable enough to draw any sort of shape in any angle and drawing their contour lines so we can see where our shape is facing and bending. And here's a quick clip of what I mean. I just went ahead, started off with a sphere, cut it in half, added the contour lines, cylinders in different angles, rotating them, trying to really understand the shapes in space. And if you don't get it, do it again and keep repeating it until you feel comfortable. So for this step, this is pretty much what I would say is incredibly important. And obviously, you'll get better at it as you go, so you don't have to be perfect. If you want to practice the poses, one of my favorite places to go to is, of course, Pose Maniacs. If you're an artist, you probably have heard about this website. If you go to their homepage, you do have to scroll quite a bit in order to get here. You have all sorts of things, figures, muscles, you name it. And I would even say once you do these poses with the shapes, do the same poses again with the muscles and then breaking the anatomy into something really dynamic and see those three figures side by side. Okay, the next part, what you put on top of the bones, is going to be the muscle. And just like the bones, there's a lot going on. So, of course, you don't have to memorize every single thing. And there's a lot more going on here than in the bones. But I would say, just like the bones, try and capture the landmarks and get the biggest chunks of muscle because these are the ones that are really going to define and be benchmarks in your body. And as you saw previously, I had the female muscle anatomy. So there are differences between the female and the male body, as well as the fat deposits, which will add a very, very good level of dynamism to your work. And little things, speaking of, the way that muscles change when they flex, extend, twist like this. I don't know how many levels you want to go with your work. Like I said, art is subjective, so all of this is just what I would call textbook knowledge, and you can do with this textbook knowledge whatever you want. Knowledge is power. And here I'm going to include a small clip of me incorporating a bit of everything that we've talked about, shapes, muscle, and a little bit of what I'm going to mention next, which are lines of action. And these are imaginary lines that follow a character's pose, and they really make everything flow together and consistent and just make them feel more tangible. And when you get better at them, which will come in the next step, you can push these to extremes to make your characters feel super dynamic. So if you remember the couple lines that I drew at the beginning of this doodle, you'll see that they guide my muscles and the structure of the whole body. So it really feels like my character is standing there and pushing each extremity. What you'll also probably notice is that this doodle is very messy, and my process specifically tends to be that. However, I am practicing, especially with Proko, to make things a little bit more structured and discipline my art and process to create things that are more detailed and more knowledgeable. And the last and final step is the organs, basically giving your anatomy and your body's life. So, a preface for this specific doodle, when I'm in this mindset, you're going to see my most raw and flow state form where I'm not really thinking about my final piece, but more so where my pen is leading me, which is when my poses come out the most dynamic. And so you'll just see my pen moving into extremities. You'll see a combination of muscles, shapes, lines of action, all just trying to come together and make sense of the general flow and movement of the piece. And sometimes the final product just doesn't make any sense or is not realistic. But I wanted to show you this specific process of mine because it's one of my favorites to do. I like just injecting as much movement as possible, and it's always really fun to push every single one of the steps that I talked about today. So I decided to pull out that style and show you. It's not perfect, but it is, I think, a good example of everything that we've talked about. And honestly, go ahead and give it a try for yourself. And that's going to be it for today. So let me know down below what you thought, if it was helpful. I don't normally do videos like this, so it's a little bit out of my element, as you can see, kind of rudimentary, rough around the edges. So I'll try and get better at that. That's why we're here, to learn. So yeah, like the video if you liked it, subscribe, join the Nippy family. The more, the merrier. I'll be putting all the links to the resources down below, as well as some extra ones that I have that I didn't really mention. And of course, thank you to Ichigo, Tokyo Treats, Sakurako for sponsoring this video. I'll put their link down below. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys next video. Bye!